This is an idea that comes from a famous story in politics, a very famous story. It might even be true. In the early 1960s, Clare Boothe Lewis, who was one of the first women to serve in the U.S. Congress, supposedly came into a very young President Kennedy and said, "Mr. President, you don't understand something significant about leadership. You don't understand," she said, "that a great man is a sentence." Kennedy, what does that mean? She said, anybody who's ever, well, update it, great person is a sentence. Anybody who's ever achieved anything in their lives isn't trying to do 97 different things, but is trying to do one or two big transcendent things. So she said Abraham Lincoln had a sentence. He preserved the Union and freed the slaves. FDR had a sentence. He lifted us out of a Great Depression and helped us win a world war. She said, Mr. President, you don't have a sentence, you have a muddled paragraph. You're trying to do 17 things, and as a result, you're not doing anything. And I think it's a very instructive tale for leaders of every kind, whether you're leading a school, whether you're leading coaching a team, whether you're leading a company. And it's a good exercise, I think, for individuals to find their purpose. So I ask people, describe your sentence. What's your sentence? When it's all said and done, what's it about? And what we've done on my website is had people contribute their sentences, both on video and in written form. And people really gravitate to this, that they're searching for a sense of purpose. They want to have a sense of what their lives are about, and they want to share it with other people. And so we've gotten, by asking, we did a video where we compiled people's sentences from around the world. We had 4 continents and a little kid from Tasmania and in Australia, and people from all over the world offering up their sentences, and it's in its own way kind of inspiring. But I think more important, it's a great exercise for people because it gives them a kind of North Star of purpose. It allows them to figure out, okay, what's it all about? And as painful as it can be for some people to push through that, I think ultimately it's helpful. Now, to my surprise, this "What's Your Sentence" exercise, some schools' classrooms started doing it. So I get, periodically these emails of a class, and the bulletin board says, everybody's sentence. And it's really cool. And what's interesting is that these kids, their sentences are, tend to be, a large number of them tend to be very purpose-centered. That is, they want to leave an imprint on the world. They see themselves as effective actors who can influence the world. So, I want to, so even, 7th graders say, he found a cure for, an illness that killed his grandfather, or she made life easier for poor kids, or, all these kinds of things that end up being very, very, very purpose-driven. And you get a sense like, my gosh, once again, we've sold these kids short. That is, they're actually thinking these things. They want to contribute to the world. And this is a way to let that out and begin, I think, a very rich conversation about it. Well, I think that the Meaningful Connections Project and the work the Patterson Foundation is doing can be very helpful in assisting kids in finding their sentence. That is, the way you discover who you are as a person is to have a rich set of experiences. And so I think a kid who doesn't go to art museums, say, very often, might go to an art museum and say, oh my gosh, I suddenly have a better sense of who I am by seeing that painting or that sculpture. Or I've always liked art and I've always liked to draw. My God, I can actually have a painting in a museum. That's amazing. Or a kid who's a musician seeing a performance and seeing that people, that actually if you work really hard at the clarinet or the trombone or the violin, that you can be an incredibly accomplished musician and make that kind of contribution to the world. And I think that the more kids can see themselves in context, the more they can see themselves outside of school in the real world, the more I think it sharpens and clarifies their sentence. And so these meaningful connections to the rest of the community, I think, can be powerful in helping have this conversation with young people about what their sentence is and really helping surface what their sentences are.